start back into our hotel room or your hotel room. And he...
If you are listening to the show and wish to join us in the chat room, visit paltalk.com. Go to the social issues, select Other, and enter the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Light up your night with The Kevin Smith Show. Hi, this is Kevin Smith. Join me Monday through Friday right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Hey, hi there. Got your attention? I'm Gia Scott, and I was curious what you were doing from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays. See, I host this really interesting little radio program that airs live then, and we bring in all sorts of guests. Authors, experiencers, and everything in between. It's paranormal and guaranteed to make you go, My guest list is always up at www.giascott.com, and do tune in to the Dawn of Shades from 7 to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays.
Whoa! Did you hear?
Listen to the Church of Mavis radio show, hosted by Jeffrey Pritchett, 11 p.m. Eastern, Saturday nights. Follow your weird and journey into the high strange. Be sure to stop by www.churchofmavisradio.com for upcoming shows, paranormal news, and show archives. That's www.churchofmavisradio.com.
Tune in to the Mind Cemetery with your hosts Chip and Nicole every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Exclusively on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. We delve into UFOs, abductions, ghosts, aliens, conspiracies, and cryptozoology.
And how could you ever forget about those creepy topics you won't hear on your local news?
This is where I would insert my obligatory skeptical statement. The Mind Cemetery, where the paranoia about the paranormal comes to rest.
Follow us on Twitter and subscribe to us on Facebook. Also, check us out on our website, mindcemetery.com, for show updates and the critically acclaimed Mind Cemetery blog.
It's not critically acclaimed, but you should check it out anyway, mindcemetery.com.
Join us for Contact in the Desert UFO Conference, August 9th through 11th. A weekend of exploration into ancient aliens, human origins, crop circles, UFO sightings, and new evidence of ongoing contact. A weekend of films, panels, lectures, and workshops will feature leading experts, including George Noory, and many more of some of the most important theorists and scientists in the field. Enter to win a free ticket at contactinthedesert.net. See you at Joshua Tree Retreat Center in August for Contact in the Desert, 760-365-8371.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Benetti, and along with Joe Montaldo, we host News on the Flip Side. Come join us every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Central for our 3-hour program. We have opinions on everything, and we're not afraid to share them. False history gets made all day, every day. The truth of the new is never on the news, but you can find it here with News on the Flip Side. Remember, don't be politically correct. Just be correct. Join us.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
welcome to another episode of the Dawn of Shades. I'm your host, Gia Scott, and we have our usual announcements to make before we get started tonight. Like always, tonight, just like every other night, I would love to have the audience's input with questions and comments. So you can email them to me at giascott@exogenynetwork.com. You can also email me with questions from previous guests, and I will try and get those answered for you as well. And in addition to the email, don't forget we can also do the call-ins, if I can find the number here again. I'll have to get the number for everybody. So I'll announce that here later in the show. But don't forget you can also do it. Oh, the number is 504-273-7379. Once again, that number is 504-273-7379. Okay, now for all you Facebookers out there, we do have a Facebook group specifically used for this radio program. And it makes an easy way for you to make comments or even ask questions about the program in general. I don't monitor the page very closely during the program, so it might not be the best way to ask a question about a specific guest, and I'd suggest either calling in or using email for that. And I also have an author page on Facebook, and I would like to invite everyone to visit my author page on Facebook and give me a like for support. Find out what's going on, what is being given away free, when there's a new book coming out, and so forth and so on. We also have, and don't forget, we also have that group on Facebook for the Dawn of Shades. Now, tonight's guest came to my attention also through Facebook. Someone shared a YouTube video, and I laughed so hard, I just couldn't forget who she was. I decided that someone that could capture my attention in such a brief time was surely someone that the entire audience would find enlightening as well. And so to make a long story much shorter, here she is. I would like to welcome Jeannie Robertson to the Dawn of Shades. Jeannie.
And I'm glad to be here. Thanks for asking me to join you tonight.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun, I suspect, because you are extremely good at making people laugh at even the speed bumps of life, you know?
Well, if you look for humor, you'll find it, and if you don't, you probably won't see it so much. So I made a living looking for humor and sharing it with people, and it works. Will you need an interpreter for my accent?
I hope not.
Okay.
I live in Mississippi. You live in South Carolina. Some of the audience might find I know that mine's not a Mississippi accent because I'm a Mississippi transplant.
All right.
But, yeah, I think most people would say that I came from the Southwest, which is where I spent most of my life. So hopefully we've got a broad enough base of accents going on tonight that everyone can understand us.
I think so. No problem at all. Well, you said we would just sit back with a cup of coffee and talk about whatever came up, and that's fine with me.
That's it. I think the first thing that most people are going to wonder is, how did you start becoming a humorous speaker?
Well, you're kind. Most of them would probably say, who is Jeannie Robertson? But what happened to me is I'm 69 years old now. I'll be 70 in another month, and I've got big plans for that, and I can tell you a little bit about it later. But when I was a rising junior at Auburn University, I entered my local beauty pageant. That's not the phrase that the pageant likes you to use, but that's what it was in the 50 years ago. And in North Carolina, Graham, North Carolina, and I won. And then I went to the Miss North Carolina, and it was when pageants were really big. It was on statewide TV and so forth, and I won the title of Miss North Carolina, and then went to the Miss America pageant, as we say also down here, as you know from Mississippi, the Miss America. I did not win. I was Miss Congeniality. I had a ball. And pageants take a lot of criticism, and a lot of it is justified. But much of it also is not. That year, I won at age 19 and then crowned my successor a year later at age 20. And during those 12 months, I made more than 500 speeches. Not 1.5-hour shows or 1-hour keynotes that I would do now, but maybe 15 minutes, 20. And I found out in about a week of giving speeches 2 or 3 times a day that I could say things in a humorous way or say things that made people laugh. And so as the word spread, I was 6 feet 2 inches tall, the tallest to have ever been in the Miss America pageant. And they would say, this tall one is really funny, and so she can do more than cut the ribbon. She can do 30 minutes for you if you want her to. So the following year, had been on TV so much that year because it was back when we had about 3 channels. And traveling my state, I crowned my successor, and the following week I spoke at 4 meetings and never looked back. I did not know professional speaking was a career choice. Probably not for a lot of women at that time. There were some men, friends who later became friends of mine who had nice livings giving speeches. But I went on back to Auburn, finished, taught physical education, coached, but the entire time the invitations came to speak. So to skip forward, it's been 50 years, and I decided I would be in it just backdoored into the meetings industry. Meetings meaning conventions, corporate meetings, chamber of commerce, banquets, any type of group that got together that needed a speaker. And I was active in the National Speakers Association, still am. I'm a past national president. But about 5 years ago, I went viral on YouTube. And I also, Sirius XM satellite radio started airing me on 2 of their family comedy channels. My material has always been, family friendly. And because of that celebrity, we put stories on iTunes. People came to me from Nashville and said, we think you can sell tickets. And as a professional speaker, and it's just according to what you're interested in, I can tell you all about that. Your primary goal is not to be a household name. You need for the meeting planners of various groups to know who you are. So having my name be recognized enough to sell 1,000 seats somewhere, for example, is not something that I thought we could do. And they said, well, let's just give it a shot. Now, they were still going viral, and they were still on every day. And we had a show in Dallas, and it sold out immediately, and then went to Durham, and then just kept going from then. Last year I did, in 10 months, and I'm 69, I did 51 theater shows, and that was what we would call an open to the public ticketed event. And then I did 50 speeches, and the transition is that we begin to get phone calls, and they said, when is your, quote, show, unquote, coming to, for example, Kansas City? And my assistant would say, well, she was in Kansas City 3 times this last year, but we quickly realized if you're at a convention or a meeting, the general public couldn't come in. So we're now doing both, and just having a ball. Last month I was on the Grand Ole Opry, and I don't sing and I don't play anything. But I'm not a comedian, and I can share with you, if you're interested tonight, the difference between being a humorist and a comedian, in my opinion.
Well, I had a discussion earlier today, I think it was. I said, Jeannie Robertson's going to be on my show tonight, and they said, well, what is it she does? And because this was a young person. As a matter of fact, I'll fess up, it was my daughter.
Sure.
And she says, she's funny, and I said, yeah. And she says, she's a comedian. I said, no, she's more properly what you'd call a humorist. And usually I'm pretty good with words, but trying to describe to somebody the difference, I admit I kind of came up flat. I said, there is a difference, but I'm just not getting it through to you.
Well, let me take a stab at it. Remember, this is my opinion, but we are similar. We're in the same family, but you would say we're cousins, like giving theater shows and keynoting a national convention. I'm both on stage with a microphone in my hand, but they're just cousins. They're a little bit different. But the comedians, and I love to go to a good comedy club and hear good comedians work and watch them work. Their goal is to get the majority of the people laughing, let's say for an hour show. They may do that at anyone's expense. They can go after the jugular if somebody's sitting there. They can go after any race, any religion. And if somebody goes to a comedy club, in reality, they shouldn't complain later because that is what is done at comedy clubs. And there are many people that are just superb at ad-libbing with audiences and doing things. And they tend to use more one-liners and jabs and comebacks, and they also seem to be permitted in that world to use four-letter words and always trying to lead to a sexual innuendo, this type of thing. No, I'm no prude, but two reasons. When I started, I wouldn't have felt comfortable doing that. And number two, in my world, the meeting planners would not have hired me. Because the meeting planners, the professional speaker's job is to make the meeting planner, the person who brought them in, look real smart for doing so. And if half the group's upset, their job may be even on the line. On the other hand, the humorist wants people to laugh just as much and just as hard, and but you don't want half of your audience offended. You don't want to go after somebody and attack one or two things in particular. And you weave a longer story, a longer vignette, and in certain situations, you're always leading to a point. In the speaking world, you do not want people to leave unless you are billed as entertainment only, to leave and say, she was hilarious. What was that all about? Because they paid money to come or they took time off to come. And so there has to be a reason for the story. The interesting thing is that when I started doing the theater shows, my speaker buddies, and I have many around the country, said, what's the difference, Jeannie? What are these shows you're doing? I mean, why aren't you into conventions? What, are they the same thing? I said, no, there's a big difference. With a speech, you have to have a point. You have to have a message. And with the show, you can walk out and just be funny. But what I found out was, I guess I've just done it too long, I really just didn't enjoy going out and being funny. Now, the point may be something as simple as look for the humor around you every day, or we find what we're looking for. And then the show is very funny, but I wouldn't mind if the people left and said, she's right. You got to look for it. It's there. If you want to find the humor, it's there everywhere. And I want people to sit there and say, instead of telling jokes or one-liners, I would like for people to sit there and look at each other and say, she's been on a fly on the wall in our house. The same thing happened to me. The exact same thing happened to me. So, whereas I might be talking about being 13 years old at 6'2", a very a person on the shorter side doesn't get the same thing I get out of it, to look for the humor in it. And now at 69, my career has aged, but has also my material. While new material, it goes with me in my age. At this age, if I came out on stage and for an hour and a half or an hour and 15 minutes told nothing but stories about being a 6'2" basketball player in the Miss America pageant, you would rightly think, and so that's what she's done for 50 years? So now it's so easy to come out. At one point I was talking about having a teenage son. At one point this other thing, traveling as a professional woman. I run my own business. And now at this age, quite frankly, I talk about the funny things that happen to you as you age. And you can still bring in young people, because we like to say, you can bring your mama or you can bring your teenagers. They'll all enjoy it. Don't have to ride home in separate cars or blush. But teenagers can be brought into it too. If they start to laugh and look at you, it's easy to stop and say, you don't think it's coming to you, but it is. I mean, we all have arm flaps. So it's an interesting way to make a living. I write my own material. I love what I do. And am I out saving the entire world? No. Am I a motivational person? No. I'm just a humorist making people laugh, but maybe putting the bug in their ear that they, we find what we're looking for every single day, and we can look for humor. I even think, now I'm getting back into the speaker world and away from the stage world, I believe you can teach children how to have a sense of humor, just like we can teach them the knife goes on the right, the fork goes on the left. And to do that, let me point out the differences between having a sense of humor and having a comedic talent. if you have a comedic talent, you might be born with it. It can be developed and finely tuned, but it doesn't mean you have a sense of humor. I've had a lot of people who've come up to me after speeches through the years, and I first started noticing it, and it made me think about this. They would say, "Oh, Jeannie, I wish I had a sense of humor like yours, but I can't tell stories or I can't tell jokes," and I wasn't even telling jokes. But I knew what they meant. They confused being on stage and being funny with having a sense of humor. We've all worked with people who can say funny things at lunch every day, but you let there be a problem and they don't have a sense of humor.
Right.
The good news is a sense of humor can be developed. It can be brought back if you've had one and you've just been beaten down and forgetting to use it. But that comedic timing that we enjoy so much on people, it often cannot be. I've had people say, if I worked with you, Jeannie, and I'm not a trainer in any way, could you help me with it? And I've already seen them speak, and I know they don't have any timing. They might could improve it a little bit, but there are some people that just have a natural timing, and they work on it. But that doesn't, I repeat, mean they have a sense of humor. So that's the two different things there. So in the speaking world, I would talk to the steps to developing a sense of humor, using funny stories to illustrate the points. And in the show world, you might take one of those points, and all night, all your material would relate back to it. It's a fun way to make a living, isn't it?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, see, as a radio host, you don't make a living, so...
No, come on, go with me.
Okay.
How many children do you have? You mentioned your little girl. How many do you have?
I have a daughter. I had a son, but he died when he was 10. I'm now grandma.
Okay.
A little granddaughter.
Sorry about your son. How old is your granddaughter?
She's going to be 3 this fall.
Oh, that's a cute age. That's a cute
age. I mean, she's a pistol, I have to admit. Last time she came to visit, she decided that she liked closing our doors because we bought an old house a year ago, so we have old doors. And that means they're solid wood, and when you close them over and over again, they make this really satisfying bang.
Okay.
A modern hollow core door doesn't sound the same.
But you can always find her.
No,
you can't. She hides.
She could disappear faster than I can blink an eye. But as long as she's closing the door, I know where she is. But it drives her grandpa through the roof.
Oh, okay.
You know, the door thing. I don't know why.
She just goes around the house opening and shutting doors?
No, she picks a favorite door and then she just opens and closes it.
Opens and closes it.
Yeah, and we have lots of doors.
Okay. Are they tall doors like in those old houses?
Well, our house was built in 1948, so it's not the incredibly tall doors that you saw at the turn of the century, 1900 and before. It's not that big. But then the exterior doors all have a glass panel in them. So when you slam those closed, they rattle.
That's interesting, of course.
They rattle. I mean, it's a distinctive rattle, too.
Bless her little heart, as we say. See, I think she's got a good personality.
Oh, I do, too. If you stomp on a hardwood floor, it doesn't sound anything like stomping on a slab foundation house. She lives in a modern house, a new house. We live in an old house.
Okay, now does she live with you or does she live near you?
She just came to visit. They live about an hour away. And she was here visiting. She loves to stomp on the floor. Unfortunately, Grandma has old dogs that are way older than grandbaby. And really not crazy about small children.
No.
Occasionally she likes to torment them, as we've had to teach her. Grandma's dogs don't like to be poked and have tails pulled, and they have a boxer that lets her do anything to it, Well, no, Grandma's dogs are old and cranky, especially cranky.
And they have what you would call precedence. They were there first.
So we've taught.
Let me tell you about a Facebook friend that I've met on Facebook. I think her name is Lisa Bucky, Edcabs. She is one of these people that helps move dogs from place to place if they're trying to get them back home, or they found an owner. She may drive 200 miles and meet somebody, and then they take the dogs on. So last August, she picked up 2 puppies, brother and sister dogs, and she took them home, and before she could get them anywhere, she'd fallen in love with them. And she named them Jeannie and Jerry, Jerry being my husband Left Brain's real name. So now I said I'm a grandparent to 2 dogs in Dallas, Texas. So I had a speech down there, and I went over and saw the babies. And but that's neat after storms, when dogs have been misplaced. There are these groups of people apparently that will help get them over here and over there and get them back to where somebody will take care of them.
And especially before storms, they're trying to get them out of the, like I lived in New Orleans when Katrina hit. Then, there were so many dogs that had to be shifted and moved. In fact, when I came back after the storm, I saw the one that they called Boots, and he had been found in the flood water, and the chemicals in the water had eaten all the hair off of his legs and stuff.
Oh.
And that dog was amazing, his personality. Because, he was well on his way to healing by the time I saw him. But he still had to have his bandages changed and everything. He would just lay there and let them do this like it was the normal routine, because he was bandaged from, toe to belly, literally.
Yeah.
While he was healing, and that dog had to be in excruciating pain.
Oh, yeah.
And yet he was not nasty about it.
Well, they sense. I believe they sense. So, well, I'll tell you what, you won't get your 3-year-old to just lie like that, lay down like that.
Oh, no.
No, but, so you got the one. I have 2 grandsons. I talk about them in the shows sometime, and the one of them came on stage and did a headstand one time, just on his head. Now he's outgrown it. One of them will be a freshman in college, and one will be 8th grade. So they live in Georgia, so I see them a lot, and there's nothing like grandchildren.
Nope. There's so much better than your own children, because when these misbehave or get cranky or smell bad, you give them to mom or dad or whoever,
You do.
They belong to somebody else.
Well,
you're not responsible for discipline. I can let her be obnoxious, and if she wants to eat this for dinner, fine. I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you want
the
cake
National Speakers Association,
why not?
Well, the National Speakers Association, we all travel so much. I'm usually on the road 25 days a month for 10 months, and in and out. So we years ago developed a youth program. So when we go to our own convention, instead of leaving our kids again, you take your kids, and then in the morning you put them in the youth program. It's like a day camp in the hotel, and speakers of all caliber come in and talk to them. So we took our son, and now we take our grandchildren. I was just at the speakers convention in Philadelphia. They rotate towns last week, and had my 13-year-old grandson with me, and there's just nothing like it. So I didn't have his mother and daddy there. So we have a free night that you can go out, and we always go out. And he told me when he got back on the plane to go home, one of the things he liked the best was the night we had expensive food. Because he had gone like an adult with the grown-ups, and he thought it was expensive food because it wasn't fast food. He said he really likes that. But I like traveling. It's interesting these days, and after being in the travel mode for 50 years, I've sure seen some changes, Gia, and it's a little bit tougher. You have to practice having a sense of humor more than ever before. It's dealing with the public and watching people, and I'm amazed when people get upset in the airport because the planes are not running on time or whatever it is, because they'll usually some of them will take it out, and that's where I find the humor. I look for it.
After Katrina, when I was back in New Orleans, there were such limited stores to buy anything.
Oh, yeah.
And the storm had shorted out my hot water heater, one of the parts of damage that had come. I'd gone to the store, bought the hot water heater, come back. It had been installed, and then I realized that I had not bought the less than $1 fuse that I had to have to make this work. I really wanted hot water, So now I have to go back to the store. Now, the problem was this was the only home improvement store open in the area. And they had, like, one clerk.
Yes.
Because workers were very, very...
Tell me you didn't lose it.
No,
Oh, good.
I knew that when going that I was going to stand in line for probably an hour to get this fuse. I was not real happy with myself, but I didn't blame the store or anybody else.
Yeah.
It was my own fault, you know. But I discovered that, you know what, if you started cracking jokes with the people who were standing in line with you, making fun of the situation, because you had to laugh at it. I mean, everything was so difficult to do.
Well, it's easier to confront it with a smile, and that traveling is really, as I said, more difficult than it's been, but it's just determined. Most people there's nothing you can do. And so we put on a smile. Of course, I get out I still use a tablet and pencil, not the computer on everything on the plane, and start making notes if people do interesting things. So, because I know it's a source of material, and if you're writing material that's humorous all the time, anything you can tweak that happens, it makes it worth my while. What the interesting thing is, looking for humor every day, I have discovered not only do I get speech material, but I really do control my own sense of humor. When you're looking for humor, it's hard to be angry at the same time looking for humor. So it does two things. I get speech material, and then I also really influence my own sense of humor traveling.
Well, I've always said humor is the grease that gets us over the speed bumps of life.
Oh, no question, no question.
You know, of all the things to think of finding something humorous, during my son's eulogy, the guy that had delivered it had been my son's karate teacher for years. And he talked about my son loved food, really loved food. And he talked about that Josh had wanted to be a sumo wrestler because they got to eat all they wanted to.
Yep.
Well, that was funny.
It was funny. It was funny.
Because I knew he'd said it.
Because you chose, you chose for that to be humorous and not, and because that's the way you wanted to remember him. And I don't know you well enough to know what happened, but when my sister died, she was much younger and she was 40, and they all said in the middle of the funeral, they said, would somebody please notify Nordstrom's? They want to know why their fourth quarter earnings have dipped. And, of course, everybody laughed because she liked to dress up. So it worked well. What else do you do? Didn't you say to me in one of the phone calls to set this up that you had a cookbook that comes?
Actually, I've released 4 cookbooks fairly recently.
You're kidding.
No, they're just little cookbooks for your Kindle. I've cooked for years, and I used to be a food writer too. I haven't done so much of that, but I do blog about it still. And cooking in my family is like a sport, competitive. Okay.
We're more into the eating, but we don't have anybody to cook.
Well, I like to cook. I prefer cooking. I mean, cooking is calorie free. Eating, and I'm one of those people that battles weight. So, because I tell everybody that, I'm really not overweight. I'm under height. I should be about 7 foot tall,
I understand.
But anyhow, cooking is something I really enjoy. I used to even go be guest cook at people's friends' houses when they wanted to have a dinner party, simply because I really like cooking. And cooking for myself or cooking for my husband and I, that's not really much of a challenge. And besides that, how much work do you want to put into it when you know that, you're going to have to do this again in, 6 to 8 hours or the next day or whatever.
That's right.
It's just fun. It's more fun to go cook at somebody else's house. I don't know why. But so cooking for me has always been, this thing that I like to do. So I've collected all these recipes and whatnot over the years. And I always change things. I always think, well, that's good, but it could be better. Some things have eluded me. I'm still working on a bananas Foster's pie. I've had some really horrible pies along the way. Eventually I'll get one I actually like.
Well,
but recently...
Have you heard the story about don't send a man to the grocery store about my pound cake story?
That was actually the very first one I heard.
Was it? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's because of that story, a magazine called and wanted to know if I submitted the story and they wrote it, but would I submit it, and I did, and they did it, and it was a hit, and they showed pictures of it and did it in their test kitchen. Well, then, of course, they called back and said, would you write just a sort of a semi-regular cooking column for us, the humorous cooking column? And I said, you don't understand. You got it. That's what I make right there, pound cakes and hamburgers. And I don't cook at all. It's just, you have to enjoy it. I know I could. I mean, the things are there, and you learn the tricks and that, but I'm always thinking I could be down there writing a humorous story. And fortunately, when I have tried, when our son was growing up, my husband said, and my son, both of them, Left Brain and Beaver, said, quit trying. It's not worth it. It's just not good. And I thought, well, I'll leave. You have that guilty complex. I'll leave casseroles when I go away to speak. I'd come back, and there they were. So maybe I didn't have the right books. Maybe I needed one of your little books.
I don't know. Cooking is if you enjoy science, to me, it's like a science experiment. It's the same kind of rules apply. When I look at it, because I have these big baskets of spice containers that go on these shelves, because spice cabinets don't work for me. They only want 12 or maybe 24 different kinds. Oh, no.
How long can you keep spices?
Most are only good for a year.
I need to go throw everything out on one cabinet then. So just
most of them are only good for a year. They lose their potency and flavor because what gives them, especially spices in the ground form, what gives them their flavor is essential oil, and that sort of evaporates over time.
Well, I didn't do well in science either. But, yeah, I guess it's because I never have the right stuff when I'm home to cook with. So you got to make a trip. And then Left Brain says, it's just easier. Let me just run and get something. I'm packing. I'm getting ready to go again tomorrow or the next day. But I have got spices in there. I know I've had in there 20 years. So is your advice for me tonight to learn in this phone conversation, among other things, I need to get rid of all those spices?
I would just go ahead, because they're not going to do you much good.
Cinnamon will work. Cinnamon will stay good, won't it?
It doesn't. It loses its potency too. You know what I actually do with old spices, because I buy them in bulk, and sometimes, and even buying a pound of it, at by the time it's getting to its end of its life expectancy, I may have half of it left. It still costs me less than buying it in the little jars. I use a lot of spices, and I know which ones I'm going to use a pound of in a year or less. But if I do have,
you do cook a pound of. Don't tell me that vanilla flavoring goes bad.
It can evaporate, but as long as it's still liquid, it's usually fine.
Okay. Well, see, I need that from the pound cakes.
Yeah.
So that's what I get a lot of that. Well,
he bought you how many when he went to the store for you? Right.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. If I go into if he goes to the grocery store for me now and I call him to add something to the list, they'll say, "Will Left Brain please come up? Will he come up?" And if they don't, if they say Jerry Robertson, come to the front, by the time he gets to the front, there's like 8 or 10 people standing around to see what he looks like. I just made a creature here because of that story with I think it has over 5 million hits on it. So, but I do not, I guess I do make a fudge once in a while on the anniversary or his birthday. But, Lean Cuisine's and ice cream are pretty good. And he's very nice about fixing those for himself, so.
They have this new thing out, and it's called McCormick. In fact, I did a review on one of them. It was bourbon pork, okay? Now, anybody who's ever made bourbon pork from scratch knows the first thing you got to do is start off and buy a bottle of bourbon. Now, we're not teetotalers, but we're also not drinkers. That bottle of bourbon would be a fortune to then sit on the shelf and evaporate like your vanilla extract.
My friends who are listening are laughing their heads off because they know I don't cook. But so I go get a bottle of bourbon, and I get a pig.
Yeah, well,
or as we say, a hog.
That's the way you do it if you're going to do it the old-fashioned way.
All right.
they have come up with this new and improved thing. And you go in and you buy this little package, and it's labeled bourbon pork and sweet potatoes. On the back is a shopping list, what you need to buy. And
it's going to be hard. How many ingredients are in there?
Oh, I think it had sweet potatoes. It called for pork tenderloin, and I use pork chops, but there again, I change everything. I think that was it.
Now, see, I never knew. I'd never met you before you called me, and I said, okay, we can talk. Now, here's the deal. You're one of those people, I can already tell, that can eat something and just sort of run it around in your mouth a while and tell me what's in that recipe, can't you?
Just about always. But my daughter's better at it.
What a talent. I could have been Miss America. If I had known how to do that, I could have gotten on stage and just tasted something and told her what was in it. See, I have no idea at all. It's just good or I don't even think about it. Isn't that something? Are all of your listeners foodies?
No.
I'm going to be boring to them.
I don't think I've ever talked about food on here. I pick up a jar when I'm making something, and because I throw together things, it's a one-time thing. You never know what you're going to get to eat at my house. Might be wonderful, might not be. Maybe I'll write down the recipe, maybe I won't. But as I'm throwing everything in the pot, as I'm thinking about what am I going to put in there with that, and I go through my spice basket, I open it up and I smell it and I think, okay, because they always smell the same way they taste. Is this going to be good in what I want? Do I want this? Yeah, dump some in. See, this is a further proof that we're all talented in different ways. Give me 3,000 people in front of me in a theater and give me an hour and a half to entertain them. And then, I'm happy as I can be. You're really into the food stuff. I'm fascinated. Well, that's just something I do. I never thought about it. I mean, the last time I was a cook professionally was before my daughter was born.
Okay.
I haven't cooked professionally since then.
But you've just written another book.
Yeah.
On sauces or something? What's it about?
Mixes. How to make homemade mixes. Yeah. It's called 56 Plus Marvelous Homemade Mixes. You can find it on Amazon.
Let me write this down. My friends will have it. I'm in awe.
Look, you probably don't need to make mixes.
What would give me, when you mix something, you just go in, you say, I'm going to put a little flour in here, I'm going to put a little of some other stuff, and then, a concoction comes out. Or what do you start with for a mix? Ketchup, hold it. I know if you have some ketchup and you can put some horseradish in there, you can dip your shrimp in it.
Well,
Is that a mix? Is that what you're talking about?
Mixes are things that you put together ahead of time to make cooking easier. And it's things like hot cocoa mix. You buy it in the little packages. I don't happen to like those. They're too sweet. Okay. I had been given a recipe, this is over 30 years ago, to make homemade hot cocoa mix. Well, I didn't like the original recipe. It didn't taste very good. So over the years, I doctored and added it, and finally I got it exactly the way I like it.
Okay.
And
can you go backwards and tell exactly what you got in there?
Yeah, it's in the recipe book.
Okay.
It's cocoa powder and non-dairy creamer and powdered sugar and
now here's my business head. This is the way I tend to think. Okay, I know how many people follow you, and I'm quite impressed. Some of the people on my Facebook page even said, we follow her also. 250,000 people or something like that. Is this how you market the book, the people that are interested in this? Or is it orderable off your website, or how do you get it?
It's orderable through Amazon.
Oh, okay. And what's the name of it?
56 Plus Marvelous Homemade Mixes.
Okay.
And actually, because I've also written a novel that was released last spring.
Holy cow. All I do is go around and make people laugh. You've written a novel? What's the name of it?
It's called The Time of Chaos. It's a post-apocalyptic novel with paranormal twists. So how do you like that? That's a mouthful to say.
I told my people that I was going to be a network that had UFOs. Did you see what I wrote?
No, actually I didn't.
You told me you didn't talk about that so much, but I'm up on it because I've just watched Independence Day 3 or 4 times this past July.
Oh, yeah?
Again, they had the extra creature.
I might have seen most of the movie.
Yeah.
But it's
well, I was just being funny. It was you said you were changing and doing. So that was the paranormal. What were the other two books?
Let me see. There was all chocolate. That's all chocolate recipes, even chocolate gravy. There is 55 Fabulous Fudges, and there is All American Biscuit, which is actually my favorite out of the four, because that one was so much fun when I was doing the research.
Were they all biscuit recipes?
It's all about the All American Biscuit. America's biscuit is so very American. It developed here. If you go to the UK and you ask for a biscuit, or you go in a restaurant and ask for biscuits and gravy, I mean, come on, that's a great breakfast, right? It wouldn't be if you got it in the UK, because that would be what we would call a cookie. And who knows what kind of gravy you might get. And the deal is that the American biscuit is very, very American. The closest thing is probably the UK scones that I could find. But it developed here in the United States, and I have recipes for everything from beaten biscuits, which is like way too much work as far as I'm concerned. It makes the kind in the tube, I think most people call them womp biscuits because you womp them on the cupboard.
Have you heard of cat biscuits?
Yeah, there's a recipe for cat head biscuits in there, too.
Cat head, that's it, cat head biscuits. They're up in West Virginia area and that kind of thing. They're in Tennessee, all of those.
Yeah.
Now, what I do is we get up early, just run about 3 blocks, not run, left brain gets in the cars and goes and gets. So we have a place called Biscuitville, and they have homemade biscuits. You can even get them with a mint of cheese. I mean, calories are no option here. We don't even worry about them. But you can tell I'm fascinated. Now tell me what else you do, because cooking, Lean Cuisine's ice cream, pound cake, fudge once in a while, and hamburgers. That's it. That's pitiful, isn't it?
Well,
hello, are you there? But I've been cut off there.
No, actually, I had a girlfriend that couldn't cook. I mean, she could not cook. And everybody.
Now wait a minute. I didn't say I couldn't cook. I just said I chose not to cook.
Oh, I don't think she could.
Okay.
She could make 2 things: dump cake and barbecue chicken.
Wow.
She never did get real good at it, but she did get better over the years. But I think we were 19, 20 years old when we were friends. And that's the only thing she made. To this day, I call dump cake dumb cake, because she was a blonde, and therefore she was, in the kitchen, she qualified as a dumb blonde. All right, every which way you could go. She had no clue what to do in a kitchen. And I've had other friends that just, I don't know if they had no taste buds or what, like one that made spaghetti by heating up tomato soup and putting in some hamburger and pouring it over noodles. I thought that was the most disgusting glop I'd ever seen.
Well, I'm not even going to go into everything I've tried to make, but it just doesn't work. I know if I took my time I could, but I don't do it. But I admire people who could do it. And good southern fried chicken and all that kind of stuff, I like to eat it, but I just don't want to clean up after I do it. I just want to do other things. I just want to go make people laugh and run my business. And Left Brain, to his credit, Left Brain says, if you're happier down in your office writing material, for Pete's sake, don't try to cook. We'll eat. Get out the peanut butter. So everybody's got, it's a different thing. Is your husband expects you to cook, I bet, doesn't he?
No, but I do it out of self-defense. Okay, we haven't been married all that long. And I remember one early meal he prepared. He just left the room, so I can safely tell his story now without him growling at me. But I don't know what all it involves, other than I know it had hamburger in it, I know it had hominy in it. I don't know what all else was in it. But there was this gray paste with white and brown lumps in it. This did not look like something that should be consumed by anything. I don't know what he did to the hominy and the hamburger and whatever else was in it. I don't know what all was involved in it. But I was horrified.
Did he put grits in his hamburger?
I have no idea. I didn't watch him cooking.
Okay.
All right. I probably should have. But ever since then, because I refer to that as the glob. He's now looking at me.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm so out of left field talking about this. Do we have anybody? Has anybody called in?
Well, we had called in, but they hung up before I got them into the out of the queue and onto the.
Oh no!
So hopefully somebody, if you want to call in, folks,
and save Jeannie from discussing food. I do want to eat it, but I do not want to fix it. That's the only thing.
The phone number to call in is 504-273-7379. 504-273-7379. Yeah,
and see, remember this, I'm in hotels most of the time. So I'm an expert on hotel foods and how to order room service because I don't want to go down there by myself and I want to keep watching TV. And so it's just a different, we live different lives and it's
my daughter will tell you that I make the best microwaved eggs of anybody because, I was a single mom and like most single moms, I was juggling, kids and karate and work and trying to be a person myself. And there were some days that, breakfast was like really hurried. And I became the queen of microwave it in a styrofoam cup and eat it on the way to school. Okay? She'll still tell you, I am the only one she knows that can make microwave eggs that are edible. Wow. I don't know how. I mean, my microwave eggs are just as rubbery as anybody else's.
Well, I can say that mine aren't because I don't believe I've ever made those.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. I'm telling you. People say, oh, but you really do cook. No, I really don't. I don't.
I believe you. And then there's times here, too, like Tuesdays for us here, that's peanut butter day. Okay.
Just Tuesday? Well, peanut butter's a good thing, They say when you have these, you got to live, with what's in your house for a while. Peanut butter's good to have stored up there. But when we buy it and store it, in case there's something we need to do that for, we eat it all up. It doesn't matter. It's just gone before you know what happens.
Oh, what you talked about, the storing it up in case of an emergency. There's these companies that cater to that, and they sell long-term storage foods. And I thought, well, that's fine and dandy, but I wonder how they taste. Well, they have this stuff. It's called textured vegetable protein. Now, I know that I've eaten it in lots of products, okay? I know it was fed to me when I was in school. Our hamburgers were mostly textured vegetable protein and not much meat. So I'm thinking, it can't be that bad, so I got a can for us to try. It was chicken flavored. I figured chicken, that goes with everything, right? Everything tastes like chicken. I don't care what I did with it. It was terrible.
Terrible.
It felt like wet cardboard in your mouth, and it had this sweet, salty taste. It was dreadful. And then there
I don't know what to say. I'm usually not speechless, but that just sounds like everything I cook. So it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter even what I start off with. So I just quit that. That's the nice thing about turning 70. If you don't want to do those things, don't do them at all. Say, I'm just not going to do that anymore.
I'm working on that now. I decided that, okay, I'm past 50 now. That means that I no longer have to pretend to conform. I was never a real good conforming sort, okay? Like when my daughter announced to her shop teacher when he asked why she knew how to run the shop tools, she said, you want to know who taught her? She said, my mom. Power tools are my best friend because, they're sort of the great leveler. You no longer need physical strength to do these things. And, I had non-traditional jobs most of my life and so forth and so on. So conforming wasn't really my thing. And now I have the great excuse why I could dress goofy. I have this goal, though. Not everybody has such lofty goals as I. But I don't know if you've seen this. They have this thing on the Internet about people of Walmart. And it's making fun of people at Walmart with photographs of the worst and the best, dressed.
Sure, yeah.
Someday I'm going to get my picture on the people in Walmart. We dress to go to Walmart. One of these days, I'm going to find myself a pair of striped pants and a polka-dotted shirt, or a plaid shirt or something. Apparently, my clothes have not been.
Now, be careful. You might be talking about my people.
Well,
talking about my people now. No, I'm kidding you.
I know,
just
but
kidding.
I can't do the things I've seen, like the people with the thong underwear and it's sticking above their pants. I could never do that.
No.
There's a limit to how far I can go, but
sure. Well, now tell me something. Now, the phone hadn't lit up, has it? Nobody wants our recipes.
Apparently not.
Okay. Well, let me tell you what I'm going to do on my 70th birthday. You can tuck this in the back of your head when it rolls around. I've got a show in Birmingham the day before my birthday, September 20th, and then in Atlanta on my birthday, September 21st. And big theaters, the Cobb's Energy Center in Atlanta, and then the Alabama Theater in Birmingham. And so we're asking the people who buy the tickets, and they're going, we're teaming with Toys for Tots. And so if they come, and if they want to, they sure don't have to bring a new unwrapped toy and see how many toys that we can let. And then the Marine Reserves come and take the toys and take them somewhere. And the reason we did this is, so you made me already think, but I can't give away my spices because if they're bad, I don't want to do that. But people say, well, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, well, if we could make children laugh, that would be good for me, and smile, and we'll do this. If anybody brings me anything at age 70, you have to come to my house and take 5 or 6 things away because we don't want any more stuff. Now, you still have an 8-year-old, so you may be into that stuff mode, but you just wait 20 years because you just want to get rid of all of it. But it would be cruel to give away my old spices, wouldn't it? I just need to chunk them. I'm learning so much tonight about cooking.
You can use them to make potpourri, though.
Potpourri, okay.
Potpourri, if they smell really bad. No, I just would mix them in a pan of water and set them on the stove on low, and it would smell like I'd cooked something really good, even if I didn't.
Now, that's a good idea. And then pretend you gave it to somebody else when anybody comes into your house and say, if I had known you would have come in, I'd have saved it and kept it here.
Exactly.
So you're hungry. I'm sorry my friend Gia is not here.
If they can come out with a can of fresh baked bread spray, imagine.
they would start laughing. You haven't heard my story about serving Chinese food to friends.
No, I heard that.
Okay, well, I can't tell it on the radio. It's too long, and I don't want to give the punchline away. But it's not that I don't try. It's just that when you're on the road this many days, that's just not something that can take any more of our time. I just eat.
I think as we get older, we learn to work smarter, and we learn what's important to us.
That's right.
And why invest a great deal of effort in something you don't give a hoot about?
Well, you're right. I just got an email from one of my best Facebookers, Linda Cream. She also tweets about me. I don't Twitter, so she tweets about me a lot, and I appreciate it. She's listening. She said she hopes everybody on my Facebook is listening. It'll be on the archive. So anyway, we did. You don't need a lot if you've got $250,000, but that's I just sitting here at the computer and pop up came one from Linda Cream. And
see, the goal is.
Let's know what she's got. Cooking! ! Smiley face. And is she right or what? I don't even know what here's the best thing I know. When you buy a Cinnabon in the airport and you have to split it with your sister, tell her you'll split it half and half, and then you cut off the top half. Because that's the one with all the icing. That's what I know about cooking. You got to outsmart some people sometime. All right, what else can we talk about? I'm lost on cooking.
Well, we've only got about a minute to talk, so we can't get into a long story because we're going to go on break here in just a few.
Now, how long are we on break?
Oh, like 7 or 8 minutes. Okay. Not too terribly long.
All right, I'll think of some other things and do it. Now, do you have commercials?
I think they play
sponsors.
I don't have any sponsors. So if anybody feels like they really want to sponsor the Dawn of Shades, I'd be ecstatic. And then maybe I would be able to at least be earning a starving.
Well,
I think, if you're not earning a living, why not earn a starving at least, right?
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll go on break and we shall be back. Is that it?
That's it, folks. Don't
All right.
Hustle. We're not going to go.
I promise I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere.
And if she did, I would haunt her like, a ghost.
I know it. See you in a few minutes then.
Yeah. We'll be right back.
Listening to the show and wish to join us in the chat room, visit paltalk.com. Go to the social issues, select other, and enter the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Light up your night with the Kevin Smith Show. Hi, this is Kevin Smith. Join me Monday through Friday right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Hey, hi there. Got your attention? I'm Gia Scott, and I was curious what you were doing from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays. See, I host this really interesting little radio program that airs live then, and we bring in all sorts of guests. Authors, experiencers, and everything in between. It's paranormal and guaranteed to make you go, My guest list is always up at www.giascott.com, and do tune in to the Dawn of Shades from 7 to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays.
Whoa! Did you hear?
Listen to the Church of Mavis radio show, hosted by Jeffrey Pritchett, 11 p.m. Eastern, Saturday nights. Follow your weird and journey into the high strange. Be sure to stop by www.churchofmavisradio.com for upcoming shows, paranormal news, and show archives. That's www.churchofmavisradio.com.
Tune in to the Mind Cemetery with your hosts, Chip and Nicole, every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Exclusively on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. We delve into UFOs, abductions, ghosts, aliens, conspiracies, and cryptozoology.
And how could you ever forget about those creepy topics you won't hear on your local news?
This is where I would insert my obligatory skeptical statement. The Mind Cemetery, where the paranoia about the paranormal comes to rest.
Follow us on Twitter and subscribe to us on Facebook. Also, check us out on our website, mindcemetery.com, for show updates and the critically acclaimed Mind Cemetery blog.
It's not critically acclaimed, but you should check it out anyway, mindcemetery.com.
Join us for Contact in the Desert UFO Conference, August 9th through 11th. A weekend of exploration into ancient aliens, human origins, crop circles, UFO sightings, and new evidence of ongoing contact. A weekend of films, panels, lectures, and workshops will feature leading experts including George Noory and many more of some of the most important theorists and scientists in the field. Enter to win a free ticket at contactinthedesert.net. See you at Joshua Tree Retreat Center in August for Contact in the Desert, 760-365-8371.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Benetti, and along with Joe Montaldo, we host News on the Flip Side. Come join us every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Central for our 3-hour program. We have opinions on everything, and we're not afraid to share them. False history gets made all day, every day. The truth of the new is never on the news, but you can find it here with News on the Flip Side. Remember, don't be politically correct. Just be correct. Join us.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
name all my
Welcome
YouTube
back
clips that you can
to
watch.
the Dawn of Shades. We're talking tonight with Jeannie Robertson, a very funny lady and professional speaker.
Who's out like a cat in the water tonight with knowing what you're talking about. Well, tell me something so that I can learn. What do you mean by Dawn of Shades?
The name actually started out when this was strictly a paranormal program. Dawn of Shades is it's a play on words because dawn means new beginning. This program started up after the first spring after Katrina. And originally it was supposed to be about paranormal stuff from New Orleans. And Shades, that there again, it has lots of different meanings. It can mean sunglasses. It can mean ghosts. And that was the reason for choosing Dawn of Shades. And now the name has sort of shifted, and the program has changed too. Originally it was a 1-hour paranormal program about New Orleans things, and now we rarely do paranormal or New Orleans, and it's 2 hours.
Okay. I don't know much about paranormal, but I do have seen movies and Savannah is supposed to also have, and Charleston, they're supposed to have new down there too, aren't they? Now your followers, I apologize if I was just trying to put it in a term I understood a little bit. Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil or whatever from that movie a few years ago. But New Orleans, Charleston, Savannah, deep southern
I think the
towns.
South in general is supposed to have its fair share of ghosts.
No telling what we got in the attic.
Well, I've never been up in our attic. Okay, we bought this house, okay, we're only the second owners of this house. The first couple had bought it when it was first built, or had it built, one or the other, and then we bought it from their estate, okay? We got it junk and all when we bought the house.
Oh, my gracious.
Junk. Some things, they saved, I had a huge stack of 1960s foil TV trays. Now, we bought this house in 2012. 60 years they kept these trays?
That's amazing. Well, were they hoarders?
They were pack rats.
Yeah.
I don't think it went far enough to be truly hoarders, but they were pack rats.
Well, the ones you see on TV, are very sad. The people that have when they have the hoarding.
So,
but I'm a pack rat. I collect 18 things.
18 things. Mm-hmm. They aren't any by chance. You don't collect aluminum foil TV dinner trays from the 60s?
No, I do not do that. No. No.
Well,
and is that what was in the house?
Among other things, that was one of the kind of things you kind of scratch your head and go,
but see,
why?
When you talk about people in the South and you talk about the attic, a lot of them's got an aunt or a grandmother up there we just bring out at Christmas. I'm just joking. I'm down in Laurel, Mississippi. Surely they do the same thing.
Yeah,
it's
they do.
It's a joke, sort of. Yeah.
We didn't think that we had any ghosts or anything in the house. We've never, Well, one day, Greg and I were sitting eating dinner and watching a program on the computer screen, actually, watching a movie. And all of a sudden, we heard the door that goes to the carport open and then close. And like I said, it's got glass. It's got a very distinctive rattle. Well, I looked at him and he looked at me. Now, we know that exactly who has the keys. We changed all the locks when we bought the house. It's what you're supposed to do when you buy a house, right? Mm-hmm. So the only person that has a house has a key to the house is my son-in-law and daughter. And I didn't think they'd be here. It was middle of the week in the early evening. They wouldn't have been here then. And so, Greg goes to see, how the door opens, whether our dogs have suddenly developed hands or something. Well, the deadbolt's still locked. The dog's asleep, and they weren't even in that room. It happens to be, it's going to be our office. It's in the process of being repainted. It's pretty much an empty room. That door didn't open. There's no way that door opens. Because I thought, well, maybe we didn't lock it and the wind blew it. The door didn't open. How did we hear it open and close? I don't know. So that was our super weird and creepy thing in the house. I'm just glad.
Let me ask you something. Thinking about, I talk about my husband so much, the left brain. Would people who are into paranormal, is that the word paranormal, the paranormal, would they tend to be more left brain people or right brain people? Now remember that left brain people want things in order. When right brain people hear the word order, we think food is on the way. Just two different ways of thinking. So would you, because I think you're sort of a neat lady, serious, but you're always thinking of because you're the host. Which would you think your listeners, those 250 million people out there that listen, would you say they tend as a group, not everybody, to be more left brain or more right brain? The creative side or the very serious?
I would say they would probably be evenly divided.
Really? Really? See, I thought since you were doing a show on paranormal, or since whatever all of that is, that you would have a tendency, I would think if the door went there, that just the wind blew on the house.
Well, I would have liked to have thought that. That was my first reaction, but it's pretty hard for the wind to blow the door open and close it.
And leave shoes there. I'm joking.
and leave the deadbolt locked. The wind isn't real good at closing the deadbolt. That was the thing. And I guess, my paranormal thing, I grew up in a haunted house.
Okay. Well, that's curious here and curious here.
You would hear footsteps upstairs if you were downstairs and vice versa. The worst part was there was these shimmery ball things about the size of a basketball. And if you happened to get caught on the stairs when you were usually going up when one was going down, it was the ickiest thing you can imagine. You wanted to go in and scrub your bones with bleach. I don't know what they were,
Where was this house?
That house happened to be in northern Iowa.
Okay.
Not even in the south. Anyhow,
no, we don't blame us for everything. Not even in the south.
One night, I was about 13, 14 years old. It was late at night, and I was doing dishes. And everybody else had already gone upstairs. And all of a sudden, I felt somebody looking at me. And I turned around, and I looked, and across the kitchen stands a man and a black dog, like a Labrador. And he was wearing clothes. I still wouldn't be able to date him as to what era they came from. It was like a flannel shirt and jeans. Nothing distinctive about the clothing. And
we would think Uncle Joe had gotten out of the attic.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
just
you
joking.
can get the kitchen from the attic. So anyhow, I'm looking at him, and because I knew he was like slightly see-through. Okay, he didn't come through the door, and I
see-through.
Slightly, yes.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah,
this is great, and I'm not making fun of you. I'm fascinated by this. Did you scream?
No, who was going to hear me? Everybody else was upstairs. We had a big house.
They'd have heard me.
Well, my mom says you'd hear me too, but I just didn't even think of screaming. I sidled along this because I had to get closer to this thing in order to get to the door to get out of the room. And for some reason, as I'm sidling along, because I had to go in front of the stove and the refrigerator was on the wall that I was going along, I put my hands behind me, like hanging on to the appliances behind me was making me safer. This is teenage logic. I don't know where it came from. And then when I got to the door, I spun around and I ran. Okay, I went upstairs. Mm-hmm. I didn't wake my mom up even then. I just went to bed. Anyhow, that was my first. It looks like the Hollywood ghost sort of thing. You would see like glowing red eyes, and just weird stuff was always happening. One time the refrigerator burst into flames, and then when the refrigerator. Then when my mom got there, they were stood on the wall. There were no flames, and the refrigerator was working fine. She replaced it anyhow. But just weird stuff would happen.
Did the people in your town think your family was like nuts? Or did y'all not tell them that these things were happening?
We probably didn't tell them. My dad was a businessman, and you didn't talk about stuff like that. He didn't even laugh in public. A smile was about as, we were very conservative.
Oh.
So,
see, that's left brain then.
And at the same time,
nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it.
No, I tend to be, a person more on the creative thing. Strong artistic tendencies. I like to create things. Hence the food thing. I also do it with fabric or clay or whatever, glue. Glue's a lot of fun. Those recipes, are much easier to deal with because you never make the same thing twice anyhow, right? So yeah, there's always this kind of conflict maybe going on, this ultra-conservative side and the ultra-liberal side, and you blend them together and you get like red and green streaks or something. I don't know.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know. Red and green stripes and lights on in the refrigerator and everything. Now, have you ever looked? I'm just fascinated by. Have you looked for? Would I call them creatures, or would I call them?
Oh, the mice. Oh, the mice.
No, I mean there's another person coming through your wall in other houses.
We have not had that. Okay, I did have a psychic tell me that my house when I lived in New Orleans was haunted. Actually, I had several of them tell me it was haunted. One said it was a nun. Another one said it was a fisherman. The only time I did have something weird happen in that house. I have a dog, Red Dog. She's been with me for years and years and years. She, originally from Arizona, came with me. And she's now getting to be really old and crotchety.
A red dog?
She's a big red dog, yeah.
Okay.
Everybody asked what kind is she, and I said she's a red dog.
She has ears. She does this. Okay.
Yeah, she's a big red dog. She looks kind of like a husky or shepherd sort of dog. And she's red with a black face, except now the black's mostly white. Anyhow, she's very, very protective and very attached to me. Usually she's never more than a few feet away from me. She suffers from severe separation anxiety. She hates to be left behind. Anyhow, one day I used to foster dogs for a rescue group, and the foster dog I had at the time, she absolutely hated her. She happened to be a Dalmatian. These two dogs never could get along. I finally asked to trade out because I couldn't take it anymore. And I had the foster dog in a crate in the middle of the living room, and Red had her bed over by the front door that I never used. I always used the kitchen door.
Okay.
And, I was walking through the house, coming from the back to the front of the house. It was just me by myself in the house. And all of a sudden, Red Dog jumps up, runs to the middle of the living room, and she spins around. She's crouched down low, growling real loud, like she's threatening something, except I don't see whatever she's threatening. And, the more I'm watching her really putting on this threatening show, because this is a dog that's not scared of anything, and she's backing away. And all of a sudden, her bladder lets loose in a fear response. And I had heard about this because I've trained dogs for years. I'd never seen a dog this scared before.
Wow.
Now, Red Dog is a large dog, and when her bladder let loose, we have a large puddle on the floor. And she usually was very good about being housebroke. And she's still growling and threatening and carrying on. And I could see she's watching something I can't see. And it came through the front door, and then it's at floor level, and then it starts going up towards the center of the house. She followed it to the center of the house where the attic fan was, and then she tracked it back to the door.
Wow.
And do you know that we lived in that house another 3 or 4 years, and she never would go over by that door ever again?
Huh.
I don't know what she saw. I know that it scared me because the dog's seeing something she's scared of, and I can't see it.
Well, I got to tell you about Lulu the snow goat. We had a snow goat. I live in Alamance County, North Carolina. And we had a goat out in the county that was named Lulu. And this is not paranormal that you were talking about, but animals can sense when there's going to be a bad storm. I believe that. I mean, that's what they. And Lulu could always tell when a really bad storm would come in. And they all have a way of telling you. The whole county's read up on this. But what Lulu would do is she would start scratching in the hay, trying to get under the hay. And then they found out that the school superintendent, this is a few years ago, the school superintendent was calling Lulu's owner to find out whether to call off school or not. Was Lulu digging in the hay, quickly. And then we had Lulu's T-shirts, and Lulu got to be on Good Morning America, the Today Show, all of these huge network TV shows and then a dog ate her, killed her. But that's not paranormal. That's animal instinct, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, isn't that fun? They would just come in. Of course, the school superintendent took right much ribbing about the fact, but he said Lulu had never been wrong about predicting.
Well, we have a little Feist dog, and unfortunately, she's probably going to pass away in the next few weeks. She's really, really not doing well, and it's age in her case. She's had a number of strokes in the last year. And, well, it's sad. It's, there again, it's not unexpected in her case. Anyhow, she's always been our storm dog. She hates storms. And if she would get up in the morning and she didn't want any part of going outside, take your umbrella. And if she... that instinct. Mm-hmm. If and she could tell, even with the weather was saying, oh, no, there's not going to be any rain, that dog knew. Yeah. And if she would hide underneath the furniture and you couldn't get her out, you better take your raincoat, your boots, and your umbrella.
Sure, because there was just something there.
Yeah, she is terrified of thunder and storms. She does not like to get wet, and never has. And I've had her. She was a rescue dog, and I've had her since a few months before Katrina happened, so I've had her quite a while now.
Well, I've spoken down in New Orleans. Again, I have not had a theater show there, but conventions. And they've got a long way to go, but strides have been made. When's the last time you were back down there?
Last January or February, when my mom was flying back to Arizona. She flew in and out of New Orleans, so we were back there then. So, yeah, we've been in Mississippi now for 4 years. I think we're starting our 4th year. Something like that.
Mississippi. I love the Deep South, as you can probably tell.
Yeah, one of these days maybe you'll be, I don't know if they do have a convention center in Hattiesburg. Maybe there'll be a convention.
I spoke in Hattiesburg last spring.
Ah, okay.
I sure did. You just go. I go where the meetings are, or I go where the shows are. And as I explained earlier, when you asked me to introduce myself, and I did, it's just a lot of fun. I speak all over, but in the South, I know they understand every word that I say. So, and Mississippi's got some great folks down there. But I did go to Hattiesburg and spoke, and then I did Jackson, and I did, what's the name of the other one I did? But I go there often to Biloxi because Biloxi pulls conventions. I go where the conventions are.
Yes.
And so, and of course, that's some good food down there. Now, I don't cook it. I just eat it. But
yes, Biloxi is... It's a fun place. It's also, for people who are not familiar with Mississippi, that's where the casinos are.
That's right. They got those back moving in a hurry after Katrina, didn't they?
I think they were the first things back.
I know. Well, I had a speech one time in Vegas, and I like to go to Vegas. But in the middle of the speech, the sound went out. The electricity went out. The whole place was pitched in the dark. So the meeting planner... Of course, I'm talking to people in the front row and screaming like a physical education major, which I am, and to people and being funny. But the meeting planner was quite concerned, and he went to talk about getting the lights back on in the convention center of this big casino hotel. And the man looked right at him and said, "Sir, with all due respect, getting your convention lights and electricity back on is not our problem. Getting our machines going again is our number one priority," which is, of course, true. their main thing is get these video poker machines and get these things going. And there was a meeting finally came back and said, I don't think we're going to get power. And it was a very long time before they did. But that's where they make their money. So Biloxi's got 2 or 3 great places. I guess the place I go the most often for speeches is the Beauregard.
Yeah.
Down there. And
that's a big place.
Do you like to go down and play the machines?
Well, I have to admit I've got more Baptist leanings than I do Methodist. And no, I don't gamble much.
Have you seen my clip, Don't Go to Vegas Without a Baptist?
No, I haven't seen that.
That is a
YouTube
clip, and it's Don't Go to Vegas Without a Baptist. And it's when I tried to take my bestest friend, I had a speech out there. She had never been. And she said, well, I don't know what they would do out there but gamble. And I said, well, there's more to it than that out there. There's shows. Bill Cosby has a show on while we would be out there. And then she backed up and said, well, it's all right if you gamble, Jeannie. You're a Methodist. But I'm a Baptist, and Baptists don't gamble. Of course, I said to her, have they told all of them yet? Because I know some of them are in there. It's just a good story, and it's on the YouTube clip. Please do watch it since you mentioned Baptist and the Methodist. I think that's...
Yeah, I think you'd mentioned it in another clip, the Methodist and Baptist thing, which is why I did refer to it.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, it's not so much, my aversion. I figured that if you have a finite amount of luck, the way the rest of my luck is going, I don't dare waste luck on money.
Oh, is that it? Somebody said just get $20 worth of quarters and throw them in there. But
they don't do quarters anymore. Oh, you put money. They don't do coins anymore. You go.
I know you have to get a check for it. But you can find an old machine, but there are not many there. But it's a story about what happened to us.
Money on a card, and you run this card through the machine, and it keeps track of. And I've gambled, a few times in the casinos here. Actually, the one that I went to was in Hancock County, not Harrison County. And it was mostly because it was close to New Orleans at the time. You'd just go out and we'd go to the beach, and then we'd go to the casino for a little while.
Well, as long as that's what you're doing, you're okay. But and of course I speak in them because here again I'm a convention speaker, and there you go. Their people have conventions in these hotels, and they cater to them, and they're quite nice. But Biloxi pulls a lot of meetings, and of course it's brought a lot of money to the state. I guess I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? It could be bad, or they could be not paying off. I don't know. All I know is humor. So and that I don't cook, but that I do eat, and I don't think my house is haunted. But you never know.
Well, I don't think mine is haunted, and I'm sure someday we'll find out a logical explanation for why we both hallucinated the same sound at the same time, but that's okay.
That's interesting. If you both, that would be interesting.
If it had been me just by myself, I would have thought, oh, it's my imagination. I mean, obviously, if I'm going to write fictional stories, I have an imagination. In fact, I've been accused of having a very wild imagination. Because, see, I have imaginary characters still. Mm-hmm. They still hang. I have the Ladies of Fate. Okay, they're up in a jury box floating in the clouds, and I have this little monster called Fear that sits on my shoulder. So I still have my imaginary characters, and why not have an imaginary ghost? Or
tell me about your listeners. Tell me about your listeners, because I'm impressed with the number that you have.
Every week
I've been pushing them to go to my YouTube clips, and I apologize for that. But do you have your topics are so varied? Do you discuss a lot of different things, or do you sort of think most of your listeners are really interested in the paranormal and the UFOs?
Well, if they were, they wouldn't be listening to me, because I almost never do UFOs, and almost never have through the entire history of the show.
It just on this channel. But what? Tell me about your average. Do you think listener? The age,
from
male,
the
female?
I've been able to get. Our average listener is probably a female from 40 to 65. Mm-hmm. So, they're sort of same age group that I fall in. So maybe the things that interest me enough that when I say, I think that'd make a great show topic, mm-hmm. and I bring them on, maybe that's why it appeals. Because our goal is every week that we have more listeners than we did the week before, and so far we succeed probably half the time. We have more listeners than we had before, so that's good.
Well, I've because of the selling the tickets at the shows, we do a lot of interviews, and I think your success, Gia, has been phenomenal because you are going up all the time. I mean, after a while, you run out of your friends, you run out of this and people to interview, and then to have people that really want to come on and talk about something. And I mean, I've enjoyed this so much. That's a credit there that they come up every week. And so they can call you and say, here's a great topic, or email and say, have you ever thought about talking about this?
Yes, and I think the big reason that people find it interesting, too, is it's a different sort of look than you get at people with more formal. I don't even like to call these programs interviews because it's not. It's a conversation. You said to me, like, we both get a cup of coffee and just pull up a chair. That's exactly it. Being from the South, you totally get it,
Oh, I get it. It might be a rocking chair on the front watching fireflies, but I do get it. And we Southerners, whether we know anything about it or not, we can talk about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we don't have to know anything about it.
I'm
we
really
can just give an opinion.
Not more fiction born in the South, because if you sat down on the average day in a small town and just recorded the gossip of the day.
Yeah.
Because I have heard some of the gossip about me over the years, and some of it I have to laugh so hard because everybody thinks I have a much more interesting life than I really do.
Than you do.
Or ever have had. Well,
I congratulate you on attracting a large number and being able to.
Shows, this is still a very small show. And I actually have people who regularly tell me that my audience is too small, and I thank them very politely, and I think, okay, I danced around looking at that 250,000 mark for a while, and that was my goal. Now I've passed it. Now I have to get that 500,000 mark, right?
Well, now, do you, when I speak, I never go to politics. I never go to controversial subjects because I'm going to lose half the people in the crowd, no matter which way you go. And my advice to young speakers has always been, you think that you're sneaking in something funny and they don't know who you are politically supporting, but people do, and you lose half of your folks. So do you get into politics? It's a little different when you're in a show in this format and when you're hired to come speak about a certain thing.
I probably have gone there a few times briefly, but only on particular issues, not so much candidates.
Mm-hmm. So you don't want your show to become a show that leans one way or the other politically?
No, I mean, obviously there's some things that, because of the fact that I do alternative topics, that are going to appeal to most of the people that are listening or are coming on, like the GMO labeling issue, and I've had people on about fracking and so forth and so on. And, and I'll admit, when I was doing the fracking program, I called somebody who worked in the oil industry for, like 40 years, and I said, all right, tell me about fracking. I need to know. And, got it from the oil company side, what they were doing and what could happen. And then I tend to let people say their piece, and the audience can make up their mind whether or not they agree with them. I don't necessarily have to agree with everything a speaker says. And believe it or not, when you bring on somebody who is an absolute raving lunatic idiot, people like to listen to it. I don't know why.
You're right. You're right. They wonder, who is this woman that's on this? You're probably right, because a lot of people like to call back and argue and this kind of stuff. Now, notice we didn't have anybody call in tonight, but they probably don't know what we're talking about. I may have somebody drop by the house tomorrow and want all my spices, though. You never know.
Yeah. Maybe they have a deep, burning desire to make a lot of potpourri.
Yeah, a lot of potpourri. But tell me, if your daughter has where her talents, the natural talents have come, what do you see?
I see in her the most amazing ability to argue. You know, when you have a baby and you're holding that newborn baby in your arm and you're looking down, and anybody who's ever been a mother or a father knows that you do this. You're looking down at the baby and you're dreaming about what you want for your child. And one of the things that I thought, I always regarded in my family, you know, a lot of people will say, you know, I'm like a bulldozer as far as my tactfulness goes. But in my family, I'm a doormat, okay? Everybody else is much more bold than I am. And so I always regarded it in myself as being somewhat less pushy than less aggressive, less assertive than what I would have liked to have been for whatever reason. So I'm looking down at my daughter and I'm thinking, you know, I want her to be able to always stand up for herself. And, you know, thinking all these kinds of thoughts. I forgot to qualify this. Because you don't want a child who can always stand up for herself. Oh. You know, it started when she was a few weeks old. If she didn't get my immediate attention, she learned to gag herself by sticking her entire fist down her throat until she would gag. She learned to roll over.
When she was a few weeks old?
Yes, just a few weeks old. She learned to roll over like, you know, she was 3 days old because I didn't pick her up fast enough. She could flip herself over. You know, and then when she was a toddler, okay, she wanted a mohawk. Now, you know, in the early 80s, mohawks were all the thing with the college crowd, and they were usually dyed, you know, fantastic colors. No mother wants her beautiful little blonde daughter to have a mohawk in any color. I mean, that's just not what you want. And I'm like, no, you can't have a mohawk, you know, when you're 18 or something. And she decided to cut her hair. You know, she was always standing up for herself.
Yep.
And
well, that means she's got a good personality. I'm just a PE major. You understand that. But I don't know. I'm not a heavy duty person as far as it comes in with a background. Oh, but I like it if they stand up for themselves.
Yeah, but, you know, sometimes it'd be nice, you know, as a mother, if you didn't have to prove you were right every single time you said, don't do X. And once
you're in for some very interesting, I can tell you this, some very interesting teenage years. Oh,
she's 30 now.
Oh, 30. Oh, okay. Well, with the 8-year-old they're coming.
The 3-year. I have a 3-year-old and a 30-year-old. The 3-year-old is the grandchild. I don't have anybody.
Well, you told me about the 3-year-old. Where did I get an 8-year-old? If you on the left side of the 3, if you close it up, you have an 8.
I guess.
I know.
But you know, I had an interesting teenage time. She also became a diabetic when she was a teenager. Now, for anybody who's got a type 1 diabetic teenage daughter, oh, you have my sympathies. I thought I was the only one going through this particular version of hell. And then I discovered that, no, all mothers of teenage diabetic daughters go through this hell.
Well, I got to ask you something. Let me interrupt you. Diabetes, and then as much as you love to cook, what did you think about Paula Deen?
The whole Paula Deen thing, you know, with her food and whatnot, I guess I'm like, should I blame Hershey's because I got fat and I like chocolate? I'm smart enough to know I can't eat chocolate 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, and not have some repercussions. If people couldn't figure out that her cooking wasn't something you could eat every day for every meal, they weren't too bright. It's natural selection, you know.
Well, it's Southern cooking, you know, and I feel for her that she's had going through some tough times. I have met her once, but she wouldn't know me. I was on a show when she was there. But it's all been interesting to follow. But the cooking, have you ever thought of doing a cooking show on TV? Would you be interested in doing something like that?
No, probably not. I'm really not even interested in doing the video because then I'd have to, like, comb my hair.
Oh, I got it.
You know, doing the radio thing, see, nobody knows if I'm wearing my pajamas or if I'm dressed to the nines.
Oh, do you think I'm dressed up?
Probably not. And if you
No, not at all. But
like, I think I'm dressed if I got my glasses on so I can hear.
Okay. Okay.
You know, that's funny, too. You know, I've only been wearing glasses full-time for a little over a year now. After a many-year break, I'd worn them years and years ago. I had to wear them full-time, but then I hadn't for a long time. And I've discovered now that when I get up and if I answer the phone, it's like I need my glasses on so I can hear better. I can't see who I'm talking to. This doesn't make any sense. That's what's on.
Now, see, I've got some YouTube clips about left brain's hearing, because I don't think he's hearing as well as he used to. And I have told him in a loving way, you need to get your hearing checked. And he says he can hear as well as any man his age. He just can't hear high-pitched sounds. And then last weekend, the smoke, have you ever had the smoke alarm thing go off that tells you that the battery's dying?
Yeah, I've also had it go off.
Scare you to death. Scares you to death. Squeak, squeak, squeak. He didn't hear it. And, of course, it goes on for about a day. And he says, I can't hear high-pitched sounds. I don't hear it. It's awful when those things go off. But we got to it.
I'd have to admit that I would probably be tempted to get, there's this alarm clock. I used to have terrible insomnia and then had a really hard time getting up in the morning. And my daughter, for one occasion, Mother's Day, birthday, Christmas, something, she gave me this alarm clock called the Screaming Meanie. And it goes off at something louder than a car alarm. It's the most incredibly loud sound you can imagine. And it goes off. And you've got to do all these things to make it shut off. I never could do all those things with that sound screaming in my ear.
No. Well, you know something, because I'm not one of your, I've just heard about you, and I don't know that much. Tell me about Greg. You said you've been married a few years. Yes. And he obviously, I've got a great husband. I kid him and call him left brain, but I just love him to death. And he supports me in what I do, and that's what's really important. And obviously, Greg probably does the same thing.
Yes, and he's also smart. He's a smart left brain sort of husband.
Mine has a doctorate, but that's two different kinds of thinking.
Well, yeah. I wrote this novel, and I waited a couple of years before I published it. And then when I published it, Greg had never read it. He still never read it. And I rib him about it, but I know why he didn't read it. See, this way he has nothing to say about it and cannot get in trouble for what he says.
Okay.
So
and was it about the paranormal?
Well, it's a post-apocalyptic story with some paranormal stuff in it. It's not a paranormal novel.
Oh, okay. You're heavy into this, Gia. You're really into this.
Well, I've spent years and years and years investigating paranormal stuff. And then I've been doing this radio show. And before that, I did do guest scheduling for a UFO show. So, I know a lot of people, heard a lot of stories.
Yeah.
And, and also when
what's out there in Roswell?
A lot of desert. You ever been to Roswell?
Well, I've been to New Mexico many times. I haven't been to Roswell, but you can tell I'm not your typical viewer. I don't understand all the things, but I know the fringes about they're supposed to be out there in Roswell something.
Well, out in Roswell, it's kind of like going to the carnival.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it really, in the UFO world, it's the least serious place I can possibly imagine. But it was really, really fun when I was there for their big UFO convention a few years back. My daughter lived in Arizona at the time, and she met me in Roswell and stayed there with me for a couple of days. And she's a blonde, and sometimes, she suffers from foot and mouth disease. And with this carnival atmosphere, she was with me. I had this lady who wanted me to bring on her boyfriend onto the radio show because he had a colander hat that lit up. I never could figure out this colander hat thing and why she thought it was going to be good on the radio. But she stalked me in the hotel. I had to, when I was going to leave the hotel, I would look out and see if she was lurking in the hallway anywhere. And then I would make a mad dash for the closest door and get out of there. Yeah, she was scary. Okay, but besides the scary lady, there were people going around wearing foil on their heads, foil hats made out of foil. And that's sort of a long-standing joke with people in UFO stuff is this foil hat. And actually, I talked to the guy who created a thought protection helmet, too. So I've talked to all kinds of people over the years. Anyhow, my daughter comes up to me. We were in one of the convention halls, and she says, Mom, where do I buy a foil hat? And I looked at her and I thought, oh, my God, I raised this child. Where did I go wrong? Where do I buy a foil hat? And I told her, Mary, all you do is you go buy the foil and you make your hat. And she's like, oh, I didn't know that.
Oh.
Yeah. She thought you had to buy a foil hat.
There's a speaker named Carl Hurley, and he tells a story about the grandfather riding in the car with his granddaughter, and she said, it's hot in here. And she says, well, turn that knob. And he said, I don't see it. Where's the button? There's no button. Turn the knob. And so, turn the handle. And she turns the handle and looks, then the window goes down and says, what will they think of next? Your daughter's in another generation. Granddaughter, you wait till that granddaughter comes. I'm telling you. We had 4 boys here. I took the week off in June. I'm on the trustees of Elon University, and 4 of them went to the day camp basketball that came from Georgia. And I was frying 2.5 to 3 pounds of bacon every morning and everything. Of course, that's what you take the time off to do. And so I'm not complaining. I had the best time of all. But I was my grandson left he had a little comedy routine on me on the cell phone. Because they're going with both phones, they're punch, text with both phones. And I've got my index finger going punch. No, that's wrong. Start over. Punch. So the generations from your daughter to you and now to your granddaughter, everything's going to be different.
Oh, my granddaughter has sent me texts.
Oh.
She sent me, she called me, I don't know how many times on her mom's cell phone. Yeah, she started doing it before she was 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, they look at something and know how to turn it on and do it. Older people don't. But they just see something and immediately go to find the button that turns it on. It's interesting.
We had a smartphone and we went to a dumb phone again. And I have to admit, I miss some of the things on a smartphone. This is a dumb phone like phones used to be.
Yep.
You can text on it, but texting on this one is the worst texting I've ever done. I told everybody, and I can't figure out how to get the messages out of it very good, especially photographs. It supposedly will get photos. I told everybody, don't send me a photo on my phone. I said, first of all, if I could get it, it'd probably be roughly the size of a postage stamp, and I couldn't see it. And secondly, I've never figured out how to make them show up. I download them over and over, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. This is a really simple phone. But, yeah, texting, I don't do texting anymore. I can receive texts, but, yeah, sending them, I'll call them. It's easier.
Well, tell me what you do, and if you have any spare time, what do you do?
We go camping. Now, if you want a source of humor, I've taken many people on camping that have never been or not skilled campers. And one of the funniest stories is my first husband was from the UK, and he had never been camping or exposed to coyotes or anything else. And I took him civilized camping. I thought that would be the best route. So we're camping in a state park in Arizona. And it's called Dead Horse State Park, I think is which one we were at. It's pretty civilized. I mean, we've got toilets and showers and, water spigots, and you can plug in electric if you want. And to me, this is very civilized camping. It's barely camping at all. It's like sleeping in a tent in the motel parking lot,
Oh, yeah.
So anyhow, we go to sleep, and he wakes me up in the middle of the night. Thump, shakes me.
Oh.
And he says, they're surrounding us. I'm like, who? I'm scared to death.
Oh, my God.
They're surrounding us. And he says, don't you hear it? I said, hear what? He says, the wolves are surrounding us.
My goodness.
I listen. Now, what I hear is a coyote, probably 4 or 5 miles away, a lone coyote going yip, 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 the way they do. And it does echo. but it's one coyote. They're not surrounding us. They're not even close to us. And another time, this is more recently, we're having a group camp out, so it's a bunch of people getting together. And the one guy shows up, and he brought his food for the weekend. You know what he brought? He brought corn dogs. Now, this wasn't super civilized camping. This was primitive camping, no electricity, there's an outhouse over yonder, you know. Not as primitive as most of the places I go, but still fairly primitive. He brings corn dogs. I said, how are you going to eat those? Frozen corn dogs, no less. It's winter camping, too, so it's cold. Nothing's going to thaw out anytime quick, anyhow. And he says, I'll roast them over the fire. I said, you can't roast a corn dog over the fire. I said, all you're going to do is burn the outside, which anybody who's listening, don't ever take corn dogs.
No.
He did get his revenge, though. I'm not sure who did it, but he was the one that had it. He had this cheese dip that he was eating with chips. Somehow or another, this ended up underneath a seat in our van. I don't know how it ended up there. Well, for months, nothing happened. It was cold. You know, even in the South, we do get some cold weather. But eventually, the warm weather came. And this most horrible smell filled this minivan.
Oh, my goodness.
Greg cleaned out the van. Didn't find anything. I said, there's got to be a dead mouse in there. Something dead is in there somewhere. He goes through it a couple of times. Finally, he finds it.
Oh.
It was this jar of cheese dip from that camping trip months before. It was so bad that anytime we had to go anywhere, you had all the windows that you could get open, the air conditioner running on full blast, and you hung your head out the window.
Right.
And the smell, I mean, it was horrible. Absolutely. Something dead was in here with us, and we're hauling it around.
Warming it up. You're warming it up.
Oh,
for putting it in the fridge.
That was, I guess, the hot dog revenge. I don't know what the deal was, but it was the same camping trip as the corn dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen some really, one funny thing.
What's the old line? My dear, camping is Marriott, not a Holiday Inn, or Holiday Inn, not a Marriott, whatever way it goes, or something like that. But when we camped we went on those clips that you said you'd heard about. We went down to Colorado for 8 days, and it was something else. You're sleeping on the rocks and their bats, and the scenery truly, truly is breathtaking. We should have gone when we were younger. And the problem is when you're younger, you don't have the money or the time off. And then when you get our age, you've got the money and you've got the time off, but holy cow, we had no business holding on to rocks to keep from going sliding down. Oh, we had a good time. I got a story out of it. That's what counts.
Well, you know, I'd always heard that I always wanted, when I was a kid, I wanted to take the mule trip down there.
Oh, yes, I know that. Yeah.
And having lived in northern Arizona for a number of years, this was a feasible thing for me to do.
Yeah.
Then I found out some of the details. First of all, some of these paths are as little as 18 inches wide that you're on by this mule. Then when it's time
do you think that there's never been a donkey that had fallen off?
I don't know, but they told me that when the mules take their rest breaks, they hang their head over the canyon.
Oh, my goodness.
That's to keep them from, running off, jumping off, I don't know what. I said, you know what, there's some things in life that are better to fantasize about than to do.
Yep.
And the mule ride is one of them.
No.
Even though I'm afraid of heights, I've done a lot of hiking. I was even a tour guide for a long time, and people would say, oh, I can't do that guided tour because, you know, I'm scared of heights, and I would laugh because nobody knew how scared of heights I was because I learned how to cope.
Yep. And I don't like to look down. If I'm at the top level of the hotel and then it's one of those that goes all the way to the lobby, I'm not crazy about looking over.
Well,
on the top of a mountain's a different thing, even worse.
Standing and looking down on the edge of the Grand Canyon, you're looking down, and it's so far down that people aren't even ants.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit that was more down than my mind wanted to comprehend.
Right.
Yeah. So Grand Canyon, the rim itself was not my favorite part of visiting there. I always preferred everything else about the Grand Canyon, but that.
Well, and now, you know, you can walk across this, you know, the Grand Canyon and look down. But we were on the raft the whole time, and it was one of those things we're glad we did, and I got a great story out of it. And I've enjoyed talking to you. Maybe I can get a story out of this. I told my Facebookers, I think Gia's going to get a story, and I am too.
Well, Jean, we are running out of time. So you want to tell everybody where to find your website?
Pardon?
Tell everybody how to find your website.
Oh, that's nice of you. It's JeannieRobertson.com. And the Jeannie does not have an I in it. It's JeannieRobertson, JeannieRobertson.com. And when you go on there, you can see it's got a little thing that says See Jeannie's Videos, and you can click and go to all the ones that we have on YouTube, or you can go to YouTube and type in Jeannie Robertson, and you'll see the ones I've posted by Jeannie Robertson. And
believe me, folks,
we're about to hit 18 million views, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is.
But I've enjoyed making your acquaintance, and I hope that your viewers who were wondering who is this woman and are still wondering who is this woman still enjoyed a casual conversation between two women of a certain age.
Yes.
Okay, have a great week.
Yes, you too. Folks,
bye-bye.
We have run out of time, and I hope that tonight's program has given you all plenty of food for thought and more illumination for your personal journey towards truth. Tune in again next week as we embark on a whole new topic, as we're going to be starting a new series featuring Native American writers who happen to all contribute to the book Unraveling the Spreading Cloth of Time. Now, if you want to stay up to date on what is happening, you can join the group on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, or Google+. So, with all of that to tease and tantalize you, I bid you all farewell. You've been listening to the Dawn of Shades, and I'm your host, Gia Scott, and good night.
Smith Show, or its affiliates or sponsors.